afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining the HCP Conversations Knowledge Series, Stepping Up Talent Acquisition. A warm welcome to all our guests, HC partners, and IHRP members. My name is Jason, and I'll be your MC for today. Today's webinar is brought to you by TAFEP and the Institute for Human Resource Professionals, IHRP. The Human Capital Partnership Program is a tripartite initiative launched in 2017 to bring together a community of employers who are committed to grow their businesses and stay competitive by having progressive employment practices and developing their human capital. The focus on human capital development is essential for Singapore's economy to remain competitive, for businesses to attract and retain talent, and grow, as well as for Singaporeans to continue to have better jobs, better salaries, and better careers. As of now, we have close to 600 HC partners, and we look forward to growing this community of progressive employers in time to come. As part of our engagement and research work at TAFEP, we had commissioned Mercer to conduct a study on HC partners to find out the relationship between the maturity of human capital practices and business performance. And last December, TAFEP and Mercer hosted a webinar to share key insights with our HC partners. We are very pleased to have Mercer with us today again to share the research insights and to also briefly introduce the implementation toolkit for talent acquisition, and to share insights from the 2021 Mercer Metal State of Talent Acquisition Study. The key insights gathered from the research and implementation toolkits will be shared in the three-part webinar series. Today's session being the first on talent acquisition, followed by performance management and career development. Besides the sharing by Mercer, we also have our esteemed HC partners, Rajah Tann and HOPE Technik, who will join us in the panel discussion today and share with us their success stories on talent acquisition. Before we begin the program proper, I'd like to take us through some house rules. Do take note that this webinar will be recorded. Secondly, and if you have any questions for our presenters later, do utilize the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Type in your questions and the speakers will try to address them as much as they can. If there are some questions that we were not able to address in time, we will follow up with you after the webinar. And to minimize disruption, participants' videos and microphones will be disabled during this period. Lastly, if you or your colleagues encounter any technical issue during this webinar, please contact us at this number, 6302-2782. I repeat again, please contact us at 6302-2782, or alternatively, you may also drop us an email at hcpartner@tafep.sg, and we will assist you the fastest we can. Thank you in advance for your understanding, and we look forward to your participation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Ms. Rupali Gupta to kickstart today's webinar with her presentation.
Good afternoon, Jason.
Yes, so I'd like to introduce Rupali. Rupali is actually the talent acquisition, a talent consulting leader at Mercer ASEAN. She helps clients define the future of work through job redesign, competency definition, assessment, and development of talent. So before Mercer, she led talent and leadership development portfolio across emerging markets. Rupali, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that energetic introduction, Jason. It's lovely to see so many of you today. I'm hoping this is going to be a very, very good use of your time. We are going to be able to take you through a couple of very interesting conversations. Firstly, as Jason introduced, the journey, and I'll talk about that a little bit. What was the Mercer research about? What did we find? We've done a full deep dive sharing on the findings in the past. We'll get into some data and statistics around what's happening in the world of talent acquisition and in the world of talent acquisition around the world. So that's what I'll cover in the middle. And I'll end with the talent acquisition toolkit. What can you do? What can you take away? And how can you work on thoughts, ideas, best practices that exist around talent acquisition? So that's going to be, the theme of what I talk about today. On that note, I'm quickly going to share my slides, just checking if they are up and if everybody can see this. I am guessing you can.
Yes, clear.
Wonderful, wonderful. With that, let's talk about, I think we've talked about this journey, we've talked about what I'm going to talk about a lot. A recap of the research study. This was shared in December 2020, mid-December. Maybe it was a little bit slow for some people who were potentially having a last wonderful, restful holiday, before we've been in what's been 2021. The research, the Mercer and TAFEP research was really around a couple of, 6 key questions, trying to understand what is the implication of good human capital practices on business outcomes, business results. Do good HCP practices really drive business outcomes? How do HCPs differentiate themselves? What does that differentiation look like? Which dimensions are the common strengths across HCPs? How would organizations, from a size perspective, how does that make a difference? And then what were some of the general themes found around the research study? So that's what we've covered. I'm not going to go into details today. That was covered in December 2020. One of the key things we found was the importance of commercial skills in the HR function. So through our interviews, and these were with lots of HR leaders, really understanding their human capital practices across the 6 HC dimensions, we found a very clear, good indirect link between HC practices and business performance. What that means is the stronger the human capital practices, the stronger people orientation to outcomes and business performance. The second theme around how do companies, and especially the human capital partners, how do HCPs differentiate themselves? One of the biggest trends we saw was they are more commercially astute than other organizations. What that meant is HCP leaders are putting HR as treating and putting HR as strategic partners. They're investing more in talent. They then have goal cascading and mature talent sourcing practices. What that meant is good HR individuals with strong commercial capabilities are able to embed people indicators into leadership and performance metrics. They were able to get the necessary support. They were able to align the human capital strategy, were able to get business leaders to fund and support and understand the implications of investing in both talent and HR. These organizations were also treating people development initiatives like an enterprise. So really looking at it as a, getting the right business case, getting the right investments and measuring return on that investment, and not just stopping at measuring, but also communicating back. So there was, that was one clear link we saw. The second big, some of the interesting insights, and these are just highlights from the, from that long study. The second, couple of themes we saw was performance management and career development were common strengths across organizations. We all know cash is king, especially in Asia. People join for money. A lot of time we've seen, through engagement studies, people leave for money. However, it stops at, once money is enough, everybody and most employees are looking for, how am I growing in my career? Where's my career development? What are the career paths for me? How am I getting feedback on how am I doing? Where will I improve? What kind of skills do I need for the future? So performance management, career development were common strengths across organizations. Once you've got people through the door, it's all about how do we grow and develop individuals. The second theme, the middle bucket you see is about different organizations have different focuses. What that meant is, when you're a lot of the small organizations, we saw the focus was on talent acquisition. They're really trying to get the right people through the door, not enough talent, and how do we just get the right talent we need for our organizations? As organizations start becoming, slightly in that medium size organization, the focus is moving towards career development. We've got these people. How do we keep them with us? How do we grow them through the organization? How do we move, rotate, offer the right opportunities? And as organizations start, becoming really large, the focus is on sustainable talent pipelines. How do I build leaders for the future? How do I get my next CEO, the next C-suite? And how do we work on succession management across the line? The third part around some common themes that we saw during our interviews with HCPs, the whole shift from buying talent to building talent. What that meant was, in the past, people were very focused about, let's go and get the next new skill we need in the market. Today, when everybody needs technical skills, when everybody needs data visualization, data analytics, there aren't enough places to buy that skill in. So organizations are now starting to move towards building and growing that capability internally. The second theme was really around industrial disruptions were key motivators for organizations to upskill their workforce. So it's really around, my industry is getting disrupted, there's pressure on my business margins, I need to upskill my people. And how do I do that? Through a mix of both formal as well as informal ways and approaches. And this worked both for performance management, for upskilling, for multiple initiatives. And finally, we saw that workforce analytics is still in the early stages of adoption. It's important, but it's still quite early across organizations in Singapore. With that, I saw a couple of flashes of questions, no open questions. I think somebody's doing a fantastic job answering them. Thank you very much. So coming back, based on the findings of the research study, we developed an implementation toolkit. And this is to serve as a guide to improve your human capital practices. Research study findings focused on two things, lots of quantitative data, regression analysis on the quantitative data, and then case study interviews to develop and generate lots of qualitative data, bringing that together to say success is a multiplicative outcome of enablers as well as the maturity of HC dimensions. And that's what the toolkit focuses on. What we're focusing on today is the first one, that's talent acquisition. We'll come back to this in a quick jiffy. And over time, you will see more releases across each of those practices. With that, coming to just some data, and this is, I find it interesting. I think the theme we found through our interviews was exactly that. People are looking for data, people are looking for evidence. How do we build data around where we are going, how we are doing? How do we build evidence around are we doing the right thing in terms of hiring people? What are some of the challenges? And with that, let me take you through a Mercer Metal report. Mercer about 2 years ago has bought this company called Metal. It's an assessment organization. We do loads of assessment across the board, right from psychometrics to 360s to deep technical coding, hackathon. It's a whole spectrum of assessment, under that umbrella. And since these assessments deal with two primary use cases, one is around hiring talent, and that's a big one. The second is around developing talent. Let's see what our clients around the world are saying. So just a quick recap, the respondents in this study, this is the state of talent acquisition for 2021 across the world. This was a mix of C-suite executives and HR leaders that were surveyed across the globe, across industries. Primary segments covered education services, financial and business services, health and hospitality, IT, electrical and electronics, tech workforce in particular. And the sizes of organizations varied. So you see 45% were small companies, fewer than 500 employees. 36% of the organizations surveyed had between 500 to 2,000 employees. And 19% had more than 2,000 employees. Only 19% were really large organizations. A lot of the others resonate with, hopefully, the audience on the call today. Before we get started, let me Thanks, Joanne. I have no clue why you're thanking us, but okay. Before we get started, I want to hear from you. And two questions, right? What are the challenges you face in acquiring talent for your organization in particular? And the second question is going to be, how has COVID impacted your talent acquisition activities and processes? With that, you should see a poll coming up. Gillian, do you need me to stop sharing?
It's fine. Poll is coming up.
Poll should be coming up on our screens right about now. There, I can see it. So two questions, both have rolled up together. The first one is, what are the key challenges you face in acquiring talent for your organization? This is a multiple choice. You can choose more than one. And the second one is around, how has COVID-19 impacted your talent acquisition activities and processes? I can't see response rate, so I'm pretty blind to it.
It's coming up in a while.
Lovely. I see more people have joined us since we started.
So responses are coming in. I shall share the interim results.
And I can see the results on my screen now. 73%, that's an overwhelming response. And I'll show you data very quickly. It literally overlaps with what our survey is telling us. Most organizations have not been able to find and attract top talent based on or in line with business requirements. The lack of a data-driven and technology-enabled, that's quite a mouthful, but a hiring process that's both data-driven, and tech-enabled. That was another big, theme, and we'll come to it very quickly. Overall long hiring cycles, not able to shortlist. I think the top three were really that. Overwhelming again is we've all moved to virtual remote hiring. I think more because none of us had a choice, right? There was no other way to do it. Everybody has had to move to a virtual remote hiring model. The question is, how good is it? How strong is it? Is it set up for success for the future? And let's talk and reflect around that a little bit. Beautiful. I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to go forward, just sharing back with you what our data told us. Our data tells us exactly the same thing. Not being able to hire top talent, not having a hiring process, which is data-driven and tech-enabled, were two of the largest challenges. What that meant is many organizations continued even now to employ unstructured means of hiring. A lot of them favored traditional means, the whole people-based in-person decision-making. I need to know, see, feel the energy of the person I'm hiring. Even if this is being done on Zoom and remote, it's one-on-one. Not a lot of organizations have been using the whole virtual engagement model or using virtual platforms very effectively. Lengthy recruiting cycles, that's the other piece we saw. Overall long hiring cycles, very, very similar to the kind of data we saw in this poll. Over 50%, most respondents took between 1 to 3 months to close positions. And when we say closing positions, it's from the date that recruiting has opened to the offer letter has been accepted. So it's really that duration. Over 50% of the organizations have taken 1 to 3 months, which is huge, across positions, including entry-level positions. So pretty similar to what our data has been telling us. The survey also tells us that there's a slight difference based on organization size. So the small and medium organizations, if you look at the top bar, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but if you see the top bar, The small and medium organizations that are light blue and medium blue in color, their focus has really been around, or the challenge has really been around not being able to find the right talent. The larger organizations have been focused around enabling and setting up their recruiting processes for the future. What has happened is everybody, like I said, has moved to a remote hiring process. A lot of shift from competing for talent, switching strategies from buying to building, because a lot of organizations are starting to realize there is that much talent available in the market. I'll move quickly. I want to get through the data quickly so I can focus a little bit on the talent acquisition toolkit and really what can you do. What's interesting is that most organizations only fill less than half of their hiring targets for 2020, which meant individuals who remain in the organization are doing the work of more people, are stretching harder, are working harder, and just, organizations are making do with less people. So lots of headwinds, real focus from most organizations, given that resources, budgets, and all of the constraints that 2020, 2021 put on us, the focus has been on filling business critical positions, managing the headwinds with that, health and hospitality, as well as financial and business services sectors. Those are the two sectors that continued with most of their hiring. Everybody else had, just saw a more slower impact. A lot of organizations we saw even pulled back, even though they had hiring needs, they pulled back on hiring, held on to positions. And that's been some of the impact of COVID on companies' plans. So it's really turned the talent acquisition landscape upside down. A lot of organizations, 4 out of 10, like I was saying, 4 out of 10 organizations postponed their hiring process, paused on hiring. 50% organizations, 50% moved to virtual remote hiring. And a lot of the focus really is now strategically organizations are thinking, how do we make this last, rather than leaving this to a one-time, remote hiring move. With that, let me get to how are organizations making significant improvements into their virtual processes. So we asked a question around what kind of virtual process did you employ? And you see the whole life cycle from virtual interview to virtual screening process to a virtual onboarding process. And again, because there was no choice, to moving the whole campus hiring for a lot of organizations that hire large graduate populations, moving that virtually. And it just indicates that this is going to be the way for the future. It's not a one-time investment. A lot of organizations are moving on platforms that allow them to do this, that allow them to use remote hiring and remote working when, in good tandem. A couple of ways and ideas, and this is just, just some quick tips and tricks, what's available out there in the market. In the past, and we've all been through those days, I have run HRIS in an organization. I mean, I've been a consultant for a long time. Like Jason introduced me, I've also spent some time in HR across emerging markets, running talent development. I've seen the days where we've run stuff on Excel, but the era of spreadsheets, emails, job posts, all coming to an end. Modern recruiting tools are the way to go. They're the ones that are engaging talent, that are creating energy, that are creating your first impression for talent coming through the door into your organization. And talent acquisition, rightly so, is the first place we are starting, because that's the marketing. And that's the first touch point to employees coming in. Organizations are using a mix of online assessments. These could be psychometric tools, these could be technical assessments, real simulations for the role, tech, non-tech. Online hackathons, these are really getting multiple people together, getting them to brainstorm, solve a problem, a highly engaged contest around hackathons, hiring platforms that allow end-to-end structured recruiting, where candidates can, engage through a single platform with multiple stakeholders. Interviewers can see data, can see how the candidate has progressed, and just look at, who are the people they've met, what kind of questions have they been asked, what kind of interviewing processes have been deployed, automating that hiring process on the platform, progressing to the next round, triggering notifications to people, to the right people, the ones who need to do the next job, structured interviews. Again, a lot of organizations, our data tells us at least 40 to 60 in that range, 40 to 60% organizations don't follow a structured interview process. It's really about customizing to who the interviewer is, what they felt like asking, rather than having a structured process that, you know, the whole batch of candidates go through. And we'll talk about that a little more later. And how they're doing this, they're using recorded or live video interviews. And the beauty of recorded video interviews is multiple interviewers can see the same content. They can rate it based on their assessment criteria that's been given to them. And you can triangulate a lot of that data together. Real-time coding interviews, I talked about that a little while ago. And some companies are even deploying screening chatbots. And these are chatbots that are, you know, starting conversations with candidates, asking them basic questions, gathering a lot of information that may or may not exist in the CV, or validating some of that, and automating the shortlisting process for candidates. So those are, you know, just a landscape of what some organizations are doing in this space. And the answer in where organizations will position across this human digital spectrum will depend on a number of factors. What industry are you in? What's the profile? What's the changing profile of candidates that you're hiring? How many workers remotely? How many workers in location? How many hybrid? What your target workforce segment is, and what appeals to that, you know, whether it's Gen Z, whether it's Gen X, whether you're still hiring baby boomers, who the workforce segment is, what appeals to them. Use centricity. What does your company stance mean? And, you know, those are all the things where, you know, what are the aspects you're in-housing, what are the aspects you're outsourcing, the affordability of digital models. Again, not everything digital is very affordable. Those are all the factors that are determining this spectrum of being on a totally human versus a totally digital, or somewhere in between, across your talent attraction, application, selection, offer making, and onboarding. The whole process of talent acquisition could vary on that entire spectrum. And why should you invest in a digital experience? Because what have we seen? 53% of the respondents in our survey who leveraged virtual hiring witnessed a decrease in their recruiting cycle. So they were able to cut down that long recruiting cycle. 50% of these companies reduce their expenses. You save on the cost of traveling, you save on the cost of multiple people, multiple times, depending on what you deploy. And 37% of those surveyed identified that future-proofing, you know, it's a great opportunity to future-proof your hiring process with virtual hiring. Oops, sorry, my slides just went out of control there. With that, let me ask you one more question before I start to wrap up this section. Compared to 2020, what is the impact on your hiring volume? And which roles are going to be your key priority for the next 2 to 3 years? With that, you should see a second poll coming up on your screens. I can see it on mine. I can tell you I've been hiring a lot for my team. And while the responses come in, I'm taking a quick look at the questions. Ivy, I totally agree with that. Candidates' expectations today are really out of whack. They do know they're in demand. They do know all businesses are bleeding. Lipwa, your statement around, does that mean businesses are looking for 100% fit? That's a very hard one to answer. I can't generalize. Because what people are defining as good enough to hire, that bar could vary for organizations. Somebody is looking for perfect fit. I don't believe in that. I personally believe in identifying and being really clear around what are the key skills we need, going with that. What should be the right time taken to get the candidate on board? Saying, I wish there were a formula, there isn't. It really depends. You know, for an entry-level person, you may take anywhere between, and again, what data tells us, people take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks For senior executives, you might want to take longer, depending on your process, depending on how many stakeholders are interviewing, the stakes. Hiring fast and firing slow is one of the biggest challenges a lot of startups, and you'll hear about them talking about it, what a lot of them face. And again, it depends on company culture, all of that. With that, I'll pause. We'll come back to the questions. I can see the poll. Beautiful. Again, this overlaps very well with our survey compared to 2020. For a lot of you, hiring volume will increase. 58% increase, 30% remain the same, which means a lot of us are spending a lot of time in talent acquisition. Which of the following roles are your main priorities? Ops and product and tech. Wonderful. Some sales, some business management, some others. Now, others is such a wonderful category. It's hard to unpeel that right now. But that again, data looks promising for 2021. Our research, our survey tells us exactly the same thing. 57% increase, 22 remain the same, which is very similar to what we saw in our poll just now. And the beauty is, companies are not just increasing their focus on hiring, but they're also increasing anywhere from 30 to 50%. So that's the volume. Some of us have started reading, this whole phenomenon, of the Great Resignation that's happening in the US. 4 million workers in the US have resigned. Multiple reasons. People are rethinking their lives. People have very little control over what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. The only bit they feel like they can explore and experiment is trying a new job, changing careers, multiple reasons why people are leaving, rethinking, home care situations, rethinking childcare, rethinking life decisions, making big career shifts. People are taking a lot of risks with their careers. And their plans, and really rethinking, what do I want to do for the rest of my life, with lifespans increasing, that starts to come together. But from an organization perspective, what that means is organizations are spending anywhere from 30 to upwards of 30% increase in volume for hiring. And top 3 roles to be hired, very similar to what our poll told us: product and tech roles, operation roles, and sales roles. Those are the top 3 roles. Geographies such as ours, Japan, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East, Africa, Central and South America, are witnessing huge demands for product and technology roles. And that's where a lot of the product tech positions are based. 60% of our population that we surveyed were looking to hire new positions. These are new positions, not replacements. Lots of focus around virtual technology, AI-enabled hiring tools. All of that is helping them get to this faster. Remote hiring is only going to continue, as we are seeing with heightened measures, new and strong lockdowns that the world is getting impacted with. And the future of talent acquisition continues to be shaped by these trends. People and demographics are changing. Lots of countries are facing aging societies with low birth rates. The majority of the world's population, and again, some of that mega cities, moving back to suburbs is happening. The world population is going to double by 2050. Global talent mobility continues to increase. And again, there's a lot of reverse shift happening these days. So some of that will stabilize, but talent mobility is huge one way or the other, either people returning or people still continuing to move out. Expectations are changing. The whole bit around the Great Resignation, when we start reading, there's a big, strong focus, especially with Gen Z, around it's not cool to work hard anymore. They want to live a balance. They want to do big things with their life. And that focus on fulfillment, work-life balance, is higher than on how much they're earning. Increased passive talent, more employees are open to new and better job opportunities, and almost all the time. Tech developments, the access to data, information, unprecedented amount of information at people's fingertips, right from job openings to the culture of organizations, to Glassdoor, to ratings of, what do I look for in my future employer, and just having all of that information on people's fingertips, and the rise of freelancers. There was an article I was reading recently about some people have legit multiple jobs, multiple remote jobs at the same time. And that's just making it so much easier for independent professionals to come out, be in the workforce, work on their own terms. And freelancing is extremely attractive for people with extremely hot skills. So those are some of the trends that will continue to impact us. On that note, coming to the last 5-10 minutes of this section, it's an exciting outlook. The focus, time, energy, effort organizations are spending on talent acquisition is increasing. And what better to launch the Talent Acquisition Practices Toolkit that helps organizations really review, reset, and redirect their practices. The toolkit helps you, and these will come out, like I said, across the 6 HC dimensions: talent acquisition, performance management, career development, succession management, strategic workforce planning, and workforce analytics. Each of these toolkits have 6 sections, and they will help you understand what it is, making the case for change, implementing each of these HC practices in a step-by-step manner, having a self-assessment approach to see, like a checklist for HR leaders to see how we're doing, and success stories that help you learn from, summaries, case studies, loads and loads of information that covers how to use and implement this. So the toolkit provides a detailed step-by-step guide. How do you use it? You start by, and these are all based on insights that Mercer has gathered through participating HR leaders from HCPs. We also have frameworks that have been established by global teams across, by consultants across global teams in Mercer. We brought all of that knowledge together. It's a simple approach saying, how do you identify needs? So prioritizing your needs, starting with dimensions that are crucial for you, looking at participant reports, focusing on the dimensions where you are above or below, as well as other companies in that average. So identifying what should you improve, planning to act. So looking at how the HC dimension supports your organization strategy. How do you gather leadership support? Allocating the resources, right from time to money to budget to team to implement the change that you want to implement. Defining criteria, SMART goals, seeking guidance to work with external parties as needed, the kind of data you need, employee surveys, HR tools. Moving then to implementing, so developing an implementation plan, communicating this plan across the organization, continuously monitoring that change, finally to evaluating based on the goals you set to begin with. That's the whole approach on how you use the toolkit. And the proactive sourcing of valuable skills is what is going to help organizations have a steady pipeline and achieve long-term success. Again, why is this the first one we chose? Because it is that entry point. You could develop a competitive advantage through attracting and sourcing the best candidates that are fit for you, anticipating your long-term human capital needs, making sure your critical roles, your critical skills are covered, and establishing a strong employer branding, becoming an employer of choice to galvanize candidates' passion to join your organization. That's really what the focus is going to be on. And the implementation toolkit covers 4 sections. The sections are pretty, aligned to the whole life cycle. Understanding your business objectives, what do you need to hire, what are the current capabilities, determining hiring requirements based on business needs, to then targeting the right channel, based on the workforce you need. What are the personas? What are the options for the right channels to target these personas? Selecting the right candidates, and that's the 3rd step, based on capability as well as culture fit. So creating an assessment framework. I talked about the importance of making evidence-based decisions, generating that data on candidates right from, and again, you're best positioned to know your process, to design for your process. But what we see clients using are a mix of personality, cognitive, again, depends on roles, personality, cognitive, some skills, domain, technical, core skills, working across those. Having that assessment framework, Training assessors to avoid biases, because one of the biggest pitfalls of the talent acquisition process is inconsistent processes and untrained assessors. So training your assessors, avoiding biases, running a consistent approach for hiring talent so that it's fair, and everybody goes through the same and similar process. Finally, coming to integrating the new hire, because once you've got somebody in, data tells us anywhere from 30 to 50% people leave in the first year for multiple reasons. A lot of it depends on poor onboarding and integration. And just curating that onboarding plan is going to help prevent that downstream pain. Establishing a buddy system, lots of wonderful tips, tricks, ideas that sometimes could be really simple, but very, very effective. Sometimes could be slightly harder and more complex to develop and run, but gives you lots of long-term success. So getting that onboarding plan for new hires, establishing a buddy system, conducting regular check-ins with new hires all the way till their probation and beyond. So that's what the talent acquisition toolkit covers. What you see here is slightly overwhelming. I won't go into, don't worry, I won't go into every little detail there. But what it tells you is there are these self-assessment resources and tools that are available to you in the toolkits. These tell you where is your organization, and you can read about different practices. Are you budding? Are you aspiring, growing, maturing, or thriving? What does it look like in each of these stages? And depending on where you are at, what can you consider doing to get to the next stage? And lots of wonderful resources from the whole world of work, lots of Mercer knowledge and IP out there. How do you attract the right talent? How do you identify and acquire skilled talent, based on your business models? Making evidence-based talent decisions. That's really one of my favorites, because it's about what data do you have? How do you generate? How do you make a decision based on all the data you have on a candidate? With that, there are also these little checklists that can help you. And these checklists help you just run through, have you thought about different aspects? So when you think about understanding business objectives, have you partnered with your business heads? Have you understood manpower requirements? And you can just go and say, check, check, check. If I've done a lot of these, maybe I move on to the next one. If I haven't, then let's think about, do I go back and do this, each of these tasks? So it's very, very helpful, very practical, very implementation oriented, and yet at the same time, very, very simple. Goes through each of those 4 sections of understanding your business needs, targeting the right channel, selecting based on capability and culture fit, as well as integrating the new hires. So that cycle I talked about. With that, I'm very excited to say today is when this implementation toolkit for talent acquisition gets launched. And if you have any other questions on talent acquisition, please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Rupali. My email address is there. My colleague Laura joins me today. With that, let me pause my slides and let's go through any quick questions before we get on to the panel discussion. Okay. Tons of questions. I think some of them I answered. I got till Serene. I'm at this question around, is it better to buy talent than build talent during this time? There's heightened expectations to hire locals. Everyone's looking for the same pool. Vicious cycle for hiring will end up spiraling salaries in respective areas. Joyce, very, very interesting question. Let me park this. I think the best place to answer that question might be in the panel discussion, purely because you'll get multiple perspectives on that. It's a very interesting question. We'll spend some time on it. Are AI roles very much in demand? Hard to get the right candidates? Ajayan, I think the short answer is yes. the maximum number of job postings are for ML engineers, data scientists. Are there enough? Is there enough talent? Probably not. Globally, the demand and supply for cybersecurity, data, AI roles is skewed. There is more demand than people, and that also goes back to the whole business case of why are organizations choosing to build talent. Sometimes because they don't have a choice, sometimes because, and a lot of organizations are realizing when you're building talent, when you're making that investment in people, taking them along your change journey, they're generating a lot of stickiness. People tend to stay. I think this will come up in our panel discussion shortly. Will it be a combination of buying talent and building talent? Timothy Chu, absolutely. It will be a mix of both. Short answer, yes, there are certain roles that you have, that you will have no option but to buy. Short-term burning business needs, but any longer-term strategic roles, organizations are better placed building them. It does take time, but you're better building those skills. Mercer's data for top tiers unable to find candidate with right skills. Impression is business still wants the perfect candidate instead of building the imperfect candidate. Lipua, I might have to ask you to explain that a little bit more. But what a survey is telling us is organizations are taking longer to hire in general over the last few months and years. Organizations are also building talent, not just because TA is not able to find the right people, but because of certain skills, business context. It makes sense to invest internally than keep going outside. Despite the pandemic, there are many resignations. We need to spend time hiring again. Absolutely. Hualim, that is the whole great resignation. It's cascading to Singapore. Like I said, I personally have been hiring in the last 6 months. I must have spent 30% of my time hiring. Those for a lot of my clients, most clients I'm talking to, most other peers in the organization, industry that I talk to. There's a lot of churn going on right now. And yes, it kind of builds on to that whole salary spiral. At the same time, I think the beauty is there's just lots of wonderful roles that are coming out. So sometimes I speak to people who are going to startups, fintechs. These are fascinating roles. So it's a mix of both. There are people who are riding on the wave and just going to similar industries, rolling around. At the same time, there are some really different new interesting roles that are coming up. So a mix. And has the great resignation been in Singapore too? I think it's coming, Becky. We are very close. I see it in my industry. Let's talk a little bit more about how we see it across industries. Angela, some roles are filled by foreign talent. These are roles not preferred by locals. I spend a lot of my time solving that problem for clients, Angela. There's no silver bullet. The short answer, depending on certain industries, could be yes. Foreign talent is preferred. Foreign talent comes into these roles easily. At the same time, I spend a lot of my time redesigning jobs and looking at what makes a stronger Singaporean core, what aspects of these jobs can become more sustainable, more attractive, and how do we work around it? That's really the quickest way I could answer that question for now. With the work from home culture established during the pandemic, will we see a shift in where the roles will be based in the future? Absolutely. Jasmine, short answer, yes. Again, another interesting question for us. I'm going to park that. Another interesting question for the panel coming up soon. While companies busy recruiting to meet business needs, not insufficient capability to take care of existing staff development. Didn't see it's a hard one to answer in a minute, but I think that's really where the balance is, right? And that's potentially why a lot of organizations also have a talent development and a talent acquisition team. Sometimes these teams are separate purely because you need different types of focus and pace. With talent acquisition, you've just got this whole energy going into sourcing, interviewing, recruiting, hiring. With development, you're then starting to take a longer term view. The two have to coexist. Should I pause there? Jason?
Yes, hi, Rupali. Yeah, perhaps we could take all these wonderful questions at the panel discussion later. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Shortly.
And I'll catch a breath while I hand back to you. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I was able to bring some interesting perspectives to the table today.
Thank you, Rupali, for the interesting insights and sharing earlier. And ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to find out more about the implementation toolkit on talent acquisition, we'll be emailing you the materials as well. So at the end of the session, we will be seeking your feedback via an online feedback form where you can actually indicate your email address there, and we'll follow up with you thereafter. All right, so now we are moving on to the next segment, the panel discussion, which is on the topic of rethinking fundamentals of talent acquisition in the new norm. First, let us welcome our esteemed moderator, Mr. Siddharth Mehta. Sid is Senior Specialist, Strategic Workforce Planning and People Analytics at SABIC. He has more than 20 years of multidimensional HR and business leadership experience across the corporate and consulting environments in countries such as India, Australia, Hong Kong, and Singapore. He has also led many HR transformation projects locally and globally, and is also passionate about making HR evidence-driven. Our first panelist is from Rajah Tann, Ms. Kway Saw Lim, Director of Human Resource. Sorry. Solin has implemented several people-centric strategies that have won top company awards. She also played significant roles in the diverse range of HR change initiatives, which includes leading strategic direction, talent acquisition and development, and more recently introducing digital transformation for HR processes. We would also like to welcome our next panelist, Mr. Holden Nor. He is the head of people and culture at HOPE Technik, a homegrown multi-million-dollar engineering firm. Holden delivers HR services in line with the needs and priorities of the company and translates business requirements into effective HR practices. Holden is also responsible for defining and managing implementations and delivery of key HR initiatives at HOPE Technik. Last but not least, we would also like to welcome back Ms. Rupali Gupta to join us in the panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we strongly encourage you to join us in this panel discussion by typing your questions again in the Q&A box. Without further ado, I'll pass it on to our moderator, Mr. Siddharth Mehta. Sid, please.
Thanks, Jason. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for that rather complimentary introduction. And for the listeners out there, this is now our second half of the 2 hours that that you all are giving us. So thank you for dialing in. We want to make sure we make this last hour exciting enough for you. And like Rupali said, and I think Rupali did a great job, so thanks for keeping us honest. I think the content you covered, giving a bit of a recap about the research that Mercer did for the HCP partners was excellent. For me, there was a couple of really interesting takeaways. One, the fact that talent acquisition is still crucial and a really important differentiator in the value chain of HR. I think that came through very clearly, thanks not just to your research, but also the poll that you ran. So for me, that was a big takeaway. I'm actually taken by surprise that a lot of organizations are still continuing to invest the resources in talent acquisition. So that's good to know. I think the second thing that you said, Rupali, was again extremely interesting, and that was really the infusion of assessment and data in making talent acquisition more evidence. And I think that's really interesting. So as we become more data driven across the value chain, not just in HR, but across the value chain of the organization, I think there's a lot more pressure on HR to also fall in line. And I think talent acquisition is a great place to start. I think adding more evidence-driven decisions upfront in the HR value chain can be very value additive. So I'm glad that you brought that to the fore. I think the last thing that you said was also extremely interesting, the notion of creating selection processes such that we are reducing biases in decision-making. That was great too. It's not enough to just get data into the system. We all can get data, but if we aren't managing the biases, then unfortunately the biases will get replicated through the data that we have. So some really, really strong points, and thank you for that, Rupali. For the listeners, what we want to do next in the perhaps next 50 odd minutes is make this more real for you. You did ask a bunch of questions regarding onboarding, regarding strengthening the Singaporean core and how do we attract locals, etc. Those are great questions, and thankfully for you, we'll get our panel to also address them. With that, let me just frame this for you. So what we end up doing next is getting a panel, and we've got two extremely, reputable HR leaders in our midst. So we are rather privileged to have both Holden and Soline with us. They're not only highly experienced, but highly creative leaders. I got a chat with them as we were preparing for this panel discussion, and I was blown away with some of the examples that they were sharing with me. And so I'm sure you will enjoy and gain a lot of that practical experience as you listen into them. So what we want to do is perhaps use the next 45 minutes to quickly give a bit of an introduction to each of their companies. That'll last maybe 10 minutes. And then we'll get into a set of question and answers, rather me asking questions of them. Hopefully I'll do justice to some of the sentiment you've expressed through the questions you asked us. So that'll probably run for another 40 odd minutes. And we'll reserve the last 10 minutes for you guys to ask anything else that I may have missed out. So continue to pour your questions in through the Q&A. I think you've done really well in the first section. Please continue the momentum. Unfortunately, I won't stop to pause because that's going to just break the momentum for us. I'll certainly reserve the last 10 minutes to pick on your questions, so please let them flow through. With that, Soline, let me bring you in and have you talk us through Rajah Tann, then we'll get Holden to do the same.
Okay. Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. Today, I'm just going to share with you our talent acquisition in Rajah Tann. Just for background, Rajah Tann is one of our local, one of the large big four local law firms in Singapore. We are part of the RTA network, which comprises of 10 local law firms in the ASEAN jurisdiction. So as I move on to our talent acquisition in Rajah Tann, I hope you can see my slides. We start off by planning at least 2 years ahead. We engage students, undergrads, as early as during their second year with us in law school. So when we look for these students, we want to ensure that we attract talented and driven candidates. And we kind of determine our target sourcing channels. We're also looking for people with a lot of passion, excellence. And thereafter, when we actually kind of identify them, we actually put them through an internship program, an attachee program. We put them through a practice training program before they get called and become associates in our firm. And how do we do that? We actually organize many activities whereby we sponsor events at major and local law UK universities. We conduct dialogue sessions. So as you can see in some of the pictures that I've shown, our partners actually goes to the local universities SMU, NUS, and so on, and actually have dialogue sessions with the students. We also have what we call an Oxbridge networking session, where we actually engage students from Oxford, Cambridge. We have an open house in the firm for them to kind of look at the office, have sharing sessions with our associates, with a lot of them with their peers, because they'll feel more in a relaxed environment, able to ask questions as to, what is it like, to be a practicing lawyer. And after that, of course, aside from all those, we also have quite a number of dialogue sessions. Our partners goes to UK, and that's during the pre-COVID times, where they actually are sometimes judges in some of the mood competitions and so on. And that's also the time where they actually look back and identify some of these aspiring young students, where we think that talent spot them, where we think that they'll become very, very successful lawyers in the future. We also participate a lot in our career fairs, local career fairs in all the universities. And once we are done with that, when we actually bring them in for internship and even for our practice training, we actually go through a whole host of programs that we put them throughout that, maybe sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes even about a month, where we put them through an orientation program. In the orientation program, they are actually addressed by our managing partners. We put them through lunches, talks by our disputes and even our corporate partners, sharing sessions by our associates management committees. And after that, when they are actually with us, they actually get to sit in some of the court sessions as well, to find out what it's like, when the court hearings are being conducted. And at the end of it, we also have exercise sessions, toasting sessions. As you can see in the slide, that because of COVID, in the past, we used to take them out for lunches. And then after that COVID came, we couldn't do it. So we had to kind of like change the last minute. Okay, now we're going to deliver all these drinks to all the interns home. And then we organize a time where we can bring them in. Everybody has a chat, 45-minute chat, and kind of share their experiences, what they enjoy, what we think we can do better, and so on and so forth. So that's how we actually onboard our interns during that entire period. And on a yearly basis, we take about 200 or so attachees and interns. And during this internship program, it is where we actually kind of like I said, talent spot them, and then thereafter we will actually offer some of these trainees into our practice training program. Now, as they go on to being an associate with Rajah Tann, we adopt a learning culture. So 2 years ago, we've actually formed our Rajah Tann Asia Academy, whereby we not only focus on the technical skills, we also focus on the soft skills, the leadership skills that we want to ensure that our people get trained on. Aside to this, we also have secondment programs where we actually second our people virtually. In the past, before COVID, we actually sent them to our partner offices. But because of COVID, we just had to change everything, the way we do things. And even with that, it was rather successful, because this is like the second year, after COVID. We did one last year, we did another one this year, and we had close to about 25 associates, being seconded to all the offices. So Singapore may receive some, Singapore may send some to another office. Could be Indonesia, could be Bangkok, could be KL, and so on. And aside to that as well, to actually broaden people's network, give them a change in the way they do things, instead of just concentrating on case matters. We also send our people for client secondments, where they can actually network, know the business processes, the culture, and so on. And while we work hard, we also play hard. So over here, you see that, this year, in fact, we were supposed to have a regional retreat for all our offices, 10 offices. However, because of COVID, we couldn't. And because we could not, then we actually set aside one day. It was in January, where we had this virtual retreat across all the 10 offices, and each office had a presentation. It could be a singing, it could be a sketch, it could be a dance, and so on. We had breakout sessions. we share, and we share our concerns, we share our issues. We also share how we can make Rajah and Tann better, achieve greater success, raising the bar, and so on. And aside to working hard, playing hard, throughout the year, we have what we call a raising the bar training, where our people actually get trained throughout the year on various topics. It could be a file opening, file closing, financial instruments, and so on and so forth. For our young leaders, we actually put them through our leadership development programs. It could be INSEAD, it could be Singapore Academy of Law, and so on. And of course, while we take so much effort to acquire our talent, we also need to ensure that we retain them. So here you see that we have a whole suite of wellness initiatives, whereby aside from a firm-wide event, we also have cluster events, whereby people can go for cooking sessions. We have long service awards. We even have buddy programs, whereby everyone that comes in, any newbie that comes in, is actually assigned a buddy where they can actually show them the ropes, give them the tips. We have a very nice cafeteria, as you see in the picture, where we actually give cafeteria credits to all our staff to receive free coffees, snacks, lunch, and they can actually credit. This amount is actually credited to them, and you can actually pay off via your handphones. And of course, last but not least, we have a whole suite of work health initiative programs, milk day, fruit day, celebrations, evening exercise classes, yoga classes, which is actually held in the office premises at the end of the day, staff training, and so on. And a whole host of these programs to keep our people engaged, united, excel for excellence. And that's how we built Rajah and Tann. Thank you. And I'll just take a pause right now. Over to you, Holden.
Hello everyone, I'm Holden here, okay, from HOPE. I'm the head of PSC, People and Culture. So to share, HOPE is a home proud engineering company, and we'll be doing a lot of engineering solutions for governments, ministries, and also commercial. Okay, we are experts in doing what was mechanical, electrical, electronics, and of course software too. Okay, and this is our
Holden.
Yes.
Holden, we can't see your screen appropriately.
Oh, okay. You can't see.
Put it
okay,
on. No, we can, but it's not on PowerPoint mode. I think.
Okay. Just give me a minute. Yeah. Sorry. Let me just stop sharing first. Yeah. Just give me a minute, sorry. Oh, it's still the same. Just a minute, so sorry.
Holden, perhaps
Yeah.
you can share the slides on your
Yeah,
video.
sure. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much. Okay, as mentioned, this is HOPE. So we are located in Penjuru. Can the next slide, please? Thanks. Okay, so once you enter our premise, you can see our 10 rules of engagement. Okay, this is where we embrace, the 10 rules. where we have our so-called, this is where our, we follows, in terms of from 1 to 10, in terms of we're looking for someone with a lot of passion and career, not the job. Okay, our employee value proposition is more towards the 6 points. That's innovate, passion, continuous learning, diversity, equality, and build a career with us. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, you can see that HOPE, as mentioned, is an engineering solution company. We have a lot of design. As the TS, which is somewhere in the middle. Okay, this is where we assist during the COVID time to have this TS system placed in many MRT stations and bus interchange. Okay, and we do drones. We do the one that's on the top right is a fire parking robot and the exoskeleton, which is shown during the air show. Okay, and of course, as you know, HOPE, in terms of the fire trucks, we built design the civil defense big rhinos, as you can see at the bottom here. Okay, and of course, the most recent one we have is the ordnance loader. We assist the Air Force to load the bombs and missiles into the airplane. Okay, and for passion, we also encourage our engineers to design their own projects. And one you can see at the bottom left, you can see someone riding on their own go-kart, right? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, you can see for diversity, we have 14 different nationalities from UK, from Spain, France, and of course the neighboring countries from Philippines, Myanmar, China, working together. Okay, the age-wise, we have all the way from 22 years old to 67. Okay, and we have almost an equal, distribution for those between 20, 29, 30 to 39, and 40 to 49. The last 10% is more those above 50, right? We also have people, we work very closely with WSG to support employees who are hard hit in the hard hit sector. Okay, and also those from trampoline, people with disability. Okay, and of course we support also those mid-career switch. That includes in our this diverse group of people, right? And on the top right, you can see that we always encourage a lot of continuous learning. A lot of meetings that we have in the conference room, meeting rooms, for people from different disciplines coming together to share what they have, experienced during the project work. All right, both internal and external. Okay, the SME, the subject matter expert, will usually do some sharing. Okay, to those graduates, fresh graduates, and interns even. All right. Okay, as for benefit-wise, one thing that we have is that equality. Our benefits are equals across every level, every position, and even to the different type of employment, whether it's Singaporean, PR, or even foreigners. All right. Okay, and of course, as mentioned at the bottom here, with us, we have a lot of engagement with our people to make sure that in terms of the career opportunities, development, is from year 1 all the way down to, now we are already 15 years. We have a lot of people that's more than 5 years with us, 30%. And about 10 years, we have about at least 10 to 20%. Right? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, once you enter the premise, you also can see the slide that's that is on the 45-degree slide, and you can see the pool table, football, table tennis. During pre-COVID, you can see people playing during lunchtime. You can see at the bottom left, you can see my CEO Peter playing with the engineers there. All right. So these are the things that you can see once you enter HOPE. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, how we go about doing our talent acquisition? Of course, we have career talks, factory visits, a lot of factory visits by schools, universities, both locals and overseas. And our SME, our co-founders, Peter, who most of the time give talks, during trade shows, and also we have a lot of internship for universities and polys and even ITEs, in HOPE. You can see on the bottom center of the slide. And of course, we have career fairs, both local and overseas. The one that you can see is somewhere in Taiwan. We conducted, I think, in 2019. Okay, 3 universities in Taiwan. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, we have a lot of engagement with every level. You can see there's a lot of games. We have year entry. You know, we have outdoor activities, and of course, CSR, where we adopted one of the elderly home care for somewhere in Marine Parade, sorry. Yeah. Okay, the next slide. Okay, and all year round, we have celebration across the year, but of course, during COVID time, we don't have this mass gathering. You can see during National Day, we have a lot of makan session. Christmas, we decorate the whole place, you know, and we have games. And Chinese New Year, we have a steamboat, you know, at least about 18 tables, you know, with 5 different groups, Muslim, non-Muslim, beef, no seafood, you know, different kinds. And of course, for anniversaries, we usually invite our family to join in the celebration. And the one that's taken is over in Bintan, you know, 10th anniversary. Okay. The next slide. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sid.
Thanks, Holden, and thanks, Soline, for being so generous in sharing your practices. Let me now get you both in, including Rupali. So Rupali, I'll direct some questions at your end too. Let's perhaps start first with just some context setting from a business standpoint. And so Holden, this is for you, and Soline, you know, any one of you can get us started. I'm curious to learn about the changes that were posed to the business because of COVID. So in the context of COVID, what are some of the changes that your business had to confront? And as HR leaders, how did you tackle those? So maybe you get us started on that, and then we can get into more details. Any one of you could you know, respond to this. I do want responses from both of you.
Okay, as mentioned, HOPE Technik is an engineering solution provider. Okay, and usually we provide POC, proof of concept, or prototype for our clients. Okay, we sometimes produce more, but not more than 50, as per the case of our clients. Okay, in support to the SG United to encourage people to monitor their temperature regularly, HOPE is tasked to design and produce the TAS, the temperature assessment system, which is used, as mentioned, in many MRTs and bus interchange. Okay, for that, we are required to mass produce the TAS system. Okay, this is a challenge for us because we usually don't mass produce. Okay, and as you know, during the period, local hires are really difficult. Okay, new scats are required, and most importantly, the production to set up very rapidly. All right. To manage, we managed to work with WSG, Workforce Singapore, to assist us to provide 8 employees seconded from UBTS. Okay, these employees are customer service officers who train to perform as assembly operators. Our engineers train them. Okay, another group as mentioned earlier is from Trampoline, who assisted locals, people with disability to find employment. We hired 3 technically trained PWDs to assist us in the packaging section. They did very well for this for the task that's given to them. Okay, and the last group we have is from SETS. Okay, these general workers supported us in another project, which in fact we converted 2 of them as our permanent contract teammates. You know, yeah. So these are the things that we have made something different from our normal talent acquisition.
That's excellent. Very creative, very unconventional. Perhaps at some stage, we'd love to have you, you know, make some notes that we could then share with the participants who are perhaps some bodies they can connect with to pursue similar ideas. Hopefully that doesn't affect you. I know you're starting to share all your secrets with us. but I know you've been extremely generous. So I think it'd be great for you guys as you kind of talk us through it. I'll keep making requests of you. So it'll be very nice for us to consolidate a list of perhaps partners that our participants could also link up with for such ideas. So thanks for that, Holden.
No problem.
Shireen, how about you? What is different in Rajah Tann, and therefore, how have you tackled some of the challenges that are coming your way?
Okay, for us, actually, because we are a professional setup, so we can actually work, with technology. Rajah Tann is still able to function as per normal. Of course, the little inconvenience is, you can't come to office. But then there again, we have set up our technology in place, so it has not really imposed any fundamental change in our business, the way we run things. And because we are a professional services firm, talent is very, very important because it's an important ingredient in this value generating process. But what we have done over time is that one is that in anybody's life cycle, our priorities change over time. And because our priorities change, some of our lawyers, as they grow with the firm, they may find that, hey, I may not be able to work full time. I have family needs, I have caregiving needs that I need to fulfill. And because of that, we have actually structured the way we do things and we introduced flexible work arrangement. And we started this like more than 10 years ago when one of our associates required this. And today, this model has worked very well. We have on an ongoing basis, every year people will ask for an arrangement. Of course, when COVID came, everybody had to work from home. And then of course, this FWA was not as significant as it was before. But because of this request that we had, we actually set up new businesses whereby we have a part-time work program where we actually second lawyers. It may not necessarily be our own existing people, sometimes external who actually subscribe to us and tell us that, hey, they want to be part of us and they want to work part-time. And we have clients who have actually engaged us on this part-time basis, and it has been very, very successful. And some of these lawyers are extremely good and the clients are very, very happy. And that's just one model that we did. The other two that we had was, like I shared earlier, secondments to our client organizations, whereby, our people sometimes get burnt out and, they just need a break. And it is good then when we send them for maybe a 3-month or sometimes a 6-month stint with our clients where they build the rapport, they know about the work processes, the culture, and that has worked really well because, when they come back to the office again, the client becomes their good friends, and you build a very good rapport with your clients from there because, some of the clients have very complex work processes. And when you are with them, for 6 months or 3 months, you really understand their work culture. The other one, like I shared earlier, was the secondment to our client's office, regional offices, where prior to this, we had face-to-face. But because of COVID, it actually, it worked well for us in the sense that we don't have to apply parcels for people to come in. There was no waiting time. You want to subscribe to this virtual secondment program, you could do it so easily because we set the date, we set the time, we work out the program, and everything could just run well. And the exposure that you get was you learn more about the clients in the region. Like I said, the culture, you make new friends. And then hopefully when COVID is over, all these people will be ready and they will want to really meet their colleagues face to face, perhaps next year when COVID is over. So these are some of the things that we have changed with COVID coming in. We've tweaked quite a number of things that we have done virtually.
Excellent, excellent. I'm sure someone like Rupali thinks of that as music to her ears. I remember when I was back at Mercer, we used to constantly be fighting to keep our talent back. So I think some of those ideas are really interesting. Solene, thanks for sharing that. And I think both of you have kind of started to talk a bit about that. And there's a lot of those questions coming in the chat as well. This notion of the sentiment of employees and prospective employees changing. because of COVID. And I know both Rajah and Tann and Technik tend to be really strong in your own industries. You tend to be really strong talent magnets. So my next question for you both is, what is it that is distinctive about your talent acquisition strategy that continues to give you the edge? What are some things that you're doing differently to allow you to be a favored employer and still be attractive to employees in this new world?
Okay, maybe I'll just go ahead first. In Rajah Tann, we not only take in a lot of interns. Like I shared earlier, we take about 200 every year. And basically, we provide that platform to the students to really understand about our culture, what they can offer us, what we can offer them, the learning experience, and so on and so forth. And we continue to do that on an ongoing basis. So we actually plan way ahead. In fact, in 2021, now it's 2021, we are already planning how many we intend to take in 2024. So we can't plan ahead to get that talent pipeline in place. But having said that, we not only hire lawyers, we train them, we give them a career path. But aside to that, we also hire a pool of supporting staff to support these lawyers. And that's where along the way, we have also tweaked the way we hire. We introduce assessment tools, technical questions, if it's hiring an IT person, office skills, if I'm hiring a support role, so that the people that comes in are already skilled. And what we need at the end of the day is, to hire the right people with the right aptitude. We train them further and upskill them further. But by virtue of really, testing out various ways of recruiting, it has actually worked for us over time. And our aim is, at the end of the day, to be able to hire better and higher quality staff. Because then, people are effective, efficient, versus hiring many numbers and, people are not as efficient and skilled.
Excellent. That's great advice. Again, a couple of takeaways for me. One is plan long. So clearly, you folks are planning 3 years ahead, which is great. And then secondly, the focus on quality. So making sure you're using good assessment tools to make the outcome of that selection process robust and favorable to the quality of candidates that you want to bring in. So that's great. Thanks for that, Soline. Holden, anything from your perspective? I know you guys are extremely strong in especially the Singapore market. You attract the best talent. So what makes you do that? What are some parts of your employment deal that make you attractive?
Okay, I think for those in the engineering and system integrator organization or industries, they know HOPE as an engineering powerhouse. Okay, we have our teammates are very passionate in what they do. Okay, here in HOPE, we have a lot of collaborations among the various disciplines. Software don't just work with software, they also work with the mechanical and electrical. Okay, this is to work together to give the best solution and satisfaction to our customers. Okay, the project work that we work, okay, I will encourage a lot of learning, whether you're intern, engineer, or even a senior engineer. A lot of discussion, a lot of meetings, to give them the different opportunities, okay, to explore and work outside, the comfort zone. Okay, there are also a lot of opportunities for them for career development, change, and even progression. This is something that we always share, where we go about doing campus recruitment, or even to those group of people who are doing some big career change. Yeah, so this is how we go about getting these talents.
So a lot of focus on some of the software elements of the deal. Your values on collaboration and your focus on career development. So that's good to know. Perhaps, Rupali, I can bring you in now. From what you've seen, I know you do a lot of work with multiple clients across the globe. What are you seeing change in the employment deal, especially given COVID? What advice may you have for our listeners if you were to give them advice on 2-3 elements of the deal that they perhaps should be more focused on? What would that be?
It's very hard to give, and Sid, you probably know, it's very hard to give advice to a bunch of people who I can't even see, and I don't even know problems because I'm a problem solver and a problem-based consultant. But if there's if there's generic advice that I could give, just listening to client stories, listening to everybody today, looking at data and what it tells us, I want to go back to saying, firstly, and sorry, I'll get to the 2 or 3 tips said, but I think the first thing that really strikes me on a regular basis, right? We talk about flexible work arrangements and how they were such a thing of the future in Singapore in 2019. Mercer runs this talent trends survey every year. Our 2019 data, which was January 2019, right? Just before the world in front of our eyes changed. January 2019, in Singapore, 43% of employees had been turned down flexible work arrangements. It's pretty striking. The second thing that really strikes me is of the people at that point in time who took flexible working arrangements, 40% of employees who took it were also concerned about how does this impact my career. Fast forward 2 years, none of us have had a choice. We've had to work from home. We are sitting in this scenario where some of us want to continue working from home for the foreseeable future. Some of us are dying to get back to work. Some of us, and again, it's about personas and different people who work with us. Some of the folks we have are single. They're Gen Z, they may be living with their parents, may be living by themselves. They're really lonely. They're looking for connection. They're looking for human connection. They want to come to the workplace. Some of them could be extroverts. Some of them could be introverts who are, very happy. I'll turn up on my Zoom meeting, on my little screen, do my meeting, disappear. And then there are others who just need to galvanize people around them, right? So I think the first thing is know your employees, listen to them, ask them. I see a lot of clients, a lot of HR teams, or even business leaders almost afraid of asking, what do you want? Purely because the minute, leaders in positions like that ask employees, what do you want? It's almost like setting the benchmark that I will give it to you. But making that okay, right? Making and putting it at the offset saying, I want to understand you and I want to understand what drives you, what your needs are at an individual level, at a broader engagement, at a broader organization level. I think the first thing is really just have that continuous employee listening built in. So different pockets of people, they have different needs. You're able to adapt to those needs. I think the second bit that I'm really hearing most of my clients struggle with, Sid, is around how do we bring this whole hybrid workplace together? We've all been in those days, right? Today, we are having a very good conversation because all 4 of us have the same size, complete equity and equality on the size of our screen, on the size of our volume. We are speaking one by one. It's just completely equitable. But if two of us were in a room and 2 of us were on a screen, this whole dynamic would change completely. So how do we get this entire hybrid workplace set up? And I think the third thing, and that's a pretty long answer to what you asked, Sid, but the third thing really is around setting up those in-person and virtual engagement forums. And we're doing some of that in our team, meeting small groups of people outside, either in office or at a cafe, or, we're even hosting people home, and just creating those points in time connection that are personal, points in time connection that are virtual, and just striking that balance constantly. I think that's the hardest part.
Nice, very nice. So a lot of focus on really sincere listening and using mechanisms that truly customize the employee experience. That's my takeaway from what you're saying, Rupali. And a lot of that is focused on our current employees. At some stage, based on how much time we have, I would love to know about prospective employees, because I think a lot of the questions that are coming in the chat are focused around how do we continue to be a compelling employer brand, especially in the era of COVID, where sentiments have changed, the way we engage has changed. How do we continue to, be known for a great company. And you guys don't have to tackle that now. Let's move on. Let's see. I'm hoping we'll have some time where I can post this back to you, the three of you. I want to delve deeper into the selection process. Now, I want to go into onboarding. We did see Rupali talk about the importance of onboarding. And that, of course, has also changed because you can't onboard physically that you were doing in the past, especially Rajah Tann. You had like huge volume of people you would take in. And Soline, you did start to touch on some of the new mechanisms you're using to onboard people. Could you give us some more detail, especially for listeners that may be struggling with that? Perhaps some of your ideas could be useful for them to take into their own workplaces.
Okay, sure. Okay, typically when we do our orientation in the past, we have face-to-face. So we will actually group all our people and then, set a starting date and then we onboard everybody together. So during the normal times, we would have a face-to-face session. We probably booked the first 2 days in a big meeting room and house everybody, about 40 of them in each run. And our managing partners will actually talk to them. We have our various partners from disputes, from corporates, to talk to our lawyers, to even to our interns, our attaches, and share with them about the firm and so on. But of course, when COVID came, everything has to change. In fact, we changed everything. It was really a kind of a scramble, I would say, especially last year where, it caught everybody by surprise. So we had to make everything online. We set up the Zoom sessions. We organized the presentations by our managing partners, all our partners. So instead of a face-to-face, we actually had it over Zoom. But one of the things that we did differently when COVID came was, in the past, we never had, we do not give interns and attaches internal email IDs. But with COVID, we did not have a choice. We need to make them feel connected to us and to be able to access to their mentors, to their supervisors, to their buddies. And because you can't see people face to face, you don't have a choice. You need to have a common IDs where you can connect. So that was one of the things that we did differently. Of course, the other things that changed was we used to have lunches. So we, in the past, we just booked, maybe 40 seats and then everybody go for a lunch, a welcome lunch. But when COVID came, we couldn't have lunch. But because we also have different stages. So during the times when the government said, okay, you can have lunch for 5. So what we did was, instead of everybody going to one place, we had to book like 9 restaurants, all at the same time, split into 9 different groups. And then when our managing partner wanted to speak to all these people, our IT folks had to come in and we did a Zoom session. So you can imagine the kind of organization, all the planning and all the logistics that we had to do just to make sure that, our orientation could still run, but in a different mode. So that was one of the things that we did. And of course, with our onboarding program, we also had, projects for some of these interns, attachees to do. And by having that common email ID, they can actually connect to each other because they have to group together and do projects and presentations. So that was how the emails came in very, very handy as compared to when they were in-house face-to-face. And of course, last but not least, is because we cannot see them face-to-face, we introduce other things like exercise programs, our yoga programs, and all these were done internally. So we did it via Zoom. And that was basically just to make people feel warm, engaged, and excited about Rajah Tann. And then, of course, last but not least, towards the end of the program was, we used to have farewell drinks. But we couldn't, again, like I said, when the COVID situation changes, we couldn't have the drinks together. So what we did differently was we actually delivered all, the drinks, we used their Grab to send all the drinks to the interns. And then we had a farewell drink sessions whereby people could gather again and share that feedback. So those are some of the things that we did differently in addition to our usual onboarding program. And for our other folks which are the lateral hires, we actually put them on our e-orientation. So it's kind of different approaches, but whatever we did, we had to change because of COVID. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for all that detail. Hopefully, the listeners are getting a value out of this. Given that we've got just about 9 minutes, I do want to get into the chat, into the Q&A that's come through the chat. I've been scanning through some of these. Holden, interesting, there's a couple for you. First things first, you did talk about your 10 rules. You said as you walk into the company, that's the first thing you'll see. Are those your values?
Yes, it's more like values in our code of behavior. Okay, for example, like number 4, focus on the goal, enjoy the process. We want everybody to understand each of us in the company have its own function and responsibility. At the same time, in terms of objective, we need to know what's the objective, the timeline. And we want them to enjoy what they do. Okay, it's not just work, but also enjoy what you do. So these are the things that we encourage every single one, in the company. And in terms of number 5, our best intention and ideas are put into production. If there's any problem, no blame goes to anyone. We'll fix it. So there's a lot, as mentioned earlier, there's a lot of collaboration between discipline to get people together to see what are the challenges they have. You know what I mean? And from there, with the agreed solution, we work on it and get the job done.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe the last question, and I'm happy for any one of you to respond to this. I think there's this big focus on strengthening our core of hiring local. Somebody in the audience is saying that that's becoming increasingly difficult because the pool is limited. As people resign, we are tapping into the same pool and perhaps escalating compensation wars. How is it that you all are addressing that challenge? What are you doing differently to still be compelling to prospective employees? And perhaps this is related to the employer brand question as well. So could you tell us, between the two of you, Rupali, you could chime in if necessary, what are you doing to still be able to attract local talent?
I think just like what Asoli mentioned, I think the group they have is much bigger than ours. We've probably got about 40 to 50 interns per year. Okay, and since the incorporations in 2006, we already converted about 30 of the interns. 90% of them are locals. Okay, so these are meant for the junior engineers. Okay, and during COVID time, we supported the SG United Traineeship Program for fresh graduates, and also SG Innovate Power X program. We have on board 7 trainees, and 3 of which are converted to permanent, and all of them are local. Okay. As for mid-career, we also supported the PCP, the Professional Conversion Program, and the Career Support Program. Okay. Currently, we got 7 teammates holding positions like business development managers, purchasing managers, project managers, UI UX designers, even engineers. Okay. And we are expecting 3 more to join us in the next 1 to 2 months. These people are people with experience, might not be in the same industry, but they have the functional experience. So it's just a matter of how they're going to work together with and collaborate with the rest of the engineers to deliver according to our expectation. And so far, there's a lot of success story, good feedbacks from the direct managers, the line managers. Yeah.
So excellent. Again, I think a big commitment to build the local core through interns and planning ahead. But secondly, also being open in experimenting different channels, partnering with government agencies. So there was a lot in there. So thanks for that, Holden. Anyone else? This is potentially the last response because we are out of time. So I do want to allow anyone else. I think the whole employer branding piece is big on the minds of listeners. Rupali, perhaps I can bring you in here. if you had a view on a very quick response on what can listeners do to still enhance the employer brand in the midst of all the craziness we're experiencing.
There's again 2 or 3 things about. One is, really knowing your employer brand. The second is communicating it. And the third is staying consistent about that communication. In terms of really knowing yourself, it's really a mix about asking your existing people why they join you, what makes them wake up and come to work every day, and being really honest about it. Knowing that, sharing that, cascading that consistently around what do you offer in terms of a value proposition to people coming in, joining in, and being with you for the time that they choose. In Asia, one of the big things that we've all worked around is we worked around attrition. We know people will work with us. And again, different industries are different. I'm talking here as, as a leader of a business. I know most people stay between 3 to 5 years. What is it that I can offer them in those 3 to 5 years? What kind of skills can they build? What kind of roles can they go on to go and grow into? I think knowing that, communicating that, keeping them on track on that promise is something that's very, very clear. The second bit is around how do you sharpen and communicate that employer brand in the current context, right? And there the answer is obviously social channels. Where are we consuming information? All of us are consuming information on our mobiles, not on any other channel today, right? So what social channels, what does the organization stand for? What do we believe? What stories are we communicating outside socially? I think that's one important part. The second is, what are our employees saying about us? There is no better channel of selling a place, bringing in friends, and especially, connected to talent acquisition, connected to the fact that we are looking and we're talking about hiring young, keeping them with us and growing them internally as we talk about building talent. It's really how do we get friends and family in? Only engaged employees are going to be able to refer people. Nobody wants the burden of bringing people to a workplace they don't believe in or they don't trust, because then they've got the burden of, telling their friend why they got them in the first place. And the minute you have good employee referral rates, it tells you 2 or 3 things. It tells you that you're listening to your employees, you've got them engaged. And if they weren't engaged, they won't be referring people. So it's just a cascade there, right? It's the best way of strengthening your employer brand is through existing employees, in short.
Excellent. Thank you so much. This has been extremely enriching for me. I can claim that. I'm hoping the listeners have found this enriching too. So a big thank you to you, Soline, Holden, and Rupali for being so generous with sharing your practices, and Rupali, all your experience and advice. If I have to summarize this for the listeners from whatever vantage point I've had just listening through, I've kind of boiled this down to 4 big messages. One is a plan ahead. So I think these companies are successful because they have the foresight and I guess the wisdom to think long. Soline talked about planning for 2024 now. Holden's talking about getting interns in a year in advance. So that's one big theme that's coming through. I think the second is to really leverage the help you all have. Holden's been tapping into a lot of the help the public services organizations are offering. Ironically, you're all on a great call that TAFEP is sponsoring. TAFEP has this great toolkit out there available to you. Please tap into it, take advantage so that you can be more successful. Holden's a prime example of having done that really, really successfully. So do that. I guess the third thing is listening. Rupali said it in a lot of her responses. I think sincere listening with the intention to learn what's on the minds of employees and then acting on that seems to be a big theme that is worth investing into. And lastly, I think experimentation. Both Soline and again Holden talked of really nice, successful initiatives that they're calling experiments. They're saying we hadn't tested these, but we thought it'll work and we went out and just did it. So that mentality to experiment, test, learn, and adapt. A part of that test, learn, adapt methodology is also in the toolkit that's available to you. So read that up. But it appears that strong practitioners are really putting that into practice. You got great examples from Soline and Holden that hopefully should encourage you to be more experimental. With that, I'm going to wrap things up. I wonder if, Jason, you want to wrap things up. But a big thanks to my fellow panelists. Thank you for being generous with all that you've shared with us. Thank you. Jason, if you could, take over from me, maybe wrap things up. Thank you to you too.
All right, thanks, Sid. So once again, like what Sid mentioned, a big thank you to all our panelists over here, Soline, Holden, and Rupali, for your generous sharing today. So I'm sure all of us have learned a lot, not just about these good practices from these various companies, but also the thought processes and the efforts behind this organization's talent acquisition strategy. And once again, a big thank you to our moderator, Sid, for bringing out the amazing insights from the panelists on this talent acquisition webinar today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you have enjoyed today's session. And we would like to have your feedback on today's webinar. If you could spare a few moments to just scan the QR code here on screen, so that we will be able to improve on our future webinars as well. So do remember to also provide us with your email address in the feedback form, so that we will be able to send you the implementation toolkit after the event as well. So while everyone is scanning the code, take your time to scan the code. So while everyone's scanning it, I would like to express our sincere thanks on behalf of TAFEP and IHRP to our special guests. Once again, Pali, Celine, Holden, and Sid, thanks so much for taking time off your busy schedules to actually come join us in this webinar today, share so much about your various insights and your progressive practices. Last but not least, I'd like to thank all the participants for actually being such wonderful attendees today, asking a lot of questions, taking part actively in today's webinar. And also thank you so much for actually participating and taking time to attend this webinar as well. And we have come to the end of today's program. Thank you everyone for your participation once again. We hope to see you in part 2 of this webinar series in the coming months ahead. So more details on the coming webinars will also be shown in the slide. So to wrap it up, I'd like to say take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I wish you a pleasant evening ahead. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.